recording for the Journey to $100 Million podcast. Today I'm here with Kurt, who is from Visit Norfolk. We were introduced by Stephanie Gorham, who was on the show, actually on a lunchtime live, maybe about a month ago. So, hey, Kurt, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Eric. How about Stephanie? Who knew?
How, how,
Who knew?
how about Stephanie? She knows some people, huh?
She does. She's a delight, and we shared an interview panel together on hiring an individual, and I tell you, it was one of the most cohesive, collaborative groups of individuals. 4 or 5 of us hiring an individual to represent the institutions of higher learning in Norfolk and then ultimately to the workforce. How do we eliminate that brain drain? So the 158 people applied for the job. It was narrowed down to 10 people. Stephanie and our cohorts, we came together and we narrowed it down to one that was offered and accepted. So hooray for Stephanie. Give her the credit.
That's not an easy task. I've been a part of helping to interview people for the city of Chesapeake. And for me, it's difficult because you have to stay on script. You have to ask the right questions in the right order, and you can't just go off on a tangent, which I like to do in interviews.
Not to mention it was on Zoom, so how do you do you look this way? No, wait, she's over there.
Look at the person or the camera. All those kinds of problems that we have these days.
Yeah.
Well, hey, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. I hate to say that I'm old, but I'm a hospitality professional. 40 years of experience, primarily in the hospitality travel industry. But when Marriott went through one of their reductions, 2001, Mr. Marriott asked if I would take this call from the Transportation Secretary, Secretary Mineta at the time, to help create TSA. And it was all about hospitality, trying to put hospitality or trying to determine what hospitality looked like in a law enforcement environment during those days at the airports. Then I went into higher education with the same intent in mind, to bring hospitality into the recruiting, the hiring, the training, the retiring, the police force, the airport, all of those pieces that typically higher education, Virginia Tech, the academics don't want. They just need somebody to operate it. And I did that for a few years and then back into hospitality. Today, I'm focused on not just individual hotels, but the city, which is kind of cool in that as president CEO of Visit Norfolk, my job is to really, or our job as a team, is to promote Norfolk's unique experiences. The vast array of amenities that are here, but not just to visitors, to residents, because if residents really enjoy that destination and those attractions, they're going to get involved in it. Their satisfaction level goes up. And then all of a sudden, people will see that there are visitors or somebody in these attractions. So it must be popular. Eric, how many times have you and we've gone to a friend's house outside of town and said, well, what can we do? And they're going, I don't know. I don't have a clue what's around here. Well, our job here is to make sure that everybody understands and knows and has experienced some of those amenities, if you will, so that our desire is to be the best city of our kind, of our size, to study, go to school here, work, meet, conferences, and to play. So kind of my job is it's kind of what I do, I think.
Well, for anyone who's not familiar with downtown Norfolk, in particular downtown, it's just bustling. There's always something going on. There's always some sort of an event. I would imagine it's kind of been curtailed a little bit over the last 6 months or so, maybe a lot. But it's generally like the place that you go if you're in our geographic region, which is called Hampton Roads, the Virginia Beach, Norfolk area.
I agree, but we have some innovative people that are trying to figure out how to do it now within COVID and do it safely, and that's the important part. Is the safe part. So the Fest Events folks that put on all these great festivals have created these circles within Town Point Park. So your party of 4, and as long as you're in those circles, you can watch the entertainment going on and feel relatively safe. So, kudos to our city.
That's interesting. I guess I haven't been down there and seen that. So it's actually painted on the lawn, and then there's a table inside of the circle.
Circles.
Yeah. Well,
pretty cool.
That's a good idea. I mean, things for like the wine festival, there's usually tables anyway, so it's kind of
Right.
like that same philosophy, right? Just
Just,
maybe
just
not as
spread
close.
out further apart, right?
Yeah. Well, neat. Okay, so cool. So Visit Norfolk, you're marketing to not only people that are outside of this area, but people residents that are of this area. You mentioned, we talked about hotels, and certainly before we went live, hotels and restaurants. Um, I mentioned COVID briefly. I would imagine has been a pretty big impact when it comes to hotels, restaurants, hospitality in general, and COVID. How are people dealing with it?
It varies across the board. Um, for us, for Visit Norfolk, the good news is that everybody's safe, everybody's healthy. Um, because of our use of effective reserve funds and cost cutting measures, we've been able to keep our entire staff employed. That's not necessarily the case with the hotels downtown or the restaurants downtown or other businesses. Um, Talking to the general manager at the Marriott today, Jesse was saying that he's back up to 30, maybe 40% of his workforce that he had before COVID. That's a lot. That's a big reduction in the workforce. But unfortunately, we've been able to keep our staff pretty whole. But on any given day, you talk about changes. On any given day, for us, half of our workforce is working from home. It's so the new world is this now remote reality, and how do we communicate well and effectively? Quick story: when we all went remote right after COVID hit, and we were all asked to work from home by the governor, we would have a conference call twice a week, Mondays and Fridays. How did your weekend? What's your week going to be like? Um, to the once a month all staff meeting that we used to have. When we started to return back to our office, it's interesting that the twice a week was missed, and that once a month wasn't enough because the staff enjoyed that interaction and learning about what was going on, and we had developed such a skill set for communicating what we were going to do that week or how one group would work with another, that it was missed. So we we're going to try once every other week, but my guess is that we may go weekly, which is kind of interesting, and the change. The big change for us has been the sales function. As you can imagine, our staff goes out to solicit conferences and conventions and meetings, and they have completely stopped. I mean, from March of 2020, probably through March of next year, for the most part, people just don't travel to conferences. So salespeople have had to rely on developing relationships, further developing relationships, creating relationships, and waiting for that time that the meetings do return. Um, but downtown, the restaurants have done extremely well with seating outside. The city has done an extraordinary job with changing the code, taking parking spaces away, and allowing those restaurants on that street sidewalk, if you will, to venture out onto the street and put tables and space them accordingly. So they would not be restricted to the requirements that said you can only have 50% or 25% of the code of your restaurant. So a lot of our restaurants downtown and some outside of the city that I'm aware of are doing okay. The takeout has also been a new change to the environment.
Yeah, definitely. Those two specializations, restaurants and hotels, have been hit. It seems like excessively hard compared to others. I know
Incredibly.
you mentioned like no layoffs for your organization. Same here. As a matter of fact, we've continued to grow and we're hiring new people all the time. Luckily, we can hire remotely. So even though we are working remote, and by the way, I'm the only one in this office. We have a 2,000 square foot office, and there's no one here. Um, we could work here. We could work remote, but it's just easy enough to work remote for everybody, whether they're here or abroad.
Right.
But yeah, we've been kind of lucky in that regard. You mentioned outdoor dining. I think that's a fabulous idea. Going into the fall, I would imagine it's going to start becoming a little bit more difficult, but I would also imagine that people are investing in those patio heaters, like heat from above.
So the city has purchased $50,000 worth of heaters, and they've done it with through electrical heaters because they don't want the propane, and it has to do with propane burning and the carbon and just the environmental nature of it. So, but they've purchased, and people can request those heaters to go out. So it's kind of
Wow,
cool.
that's
Kinda cool.
very cool and very generous of the city to provide those. Yeah, I didn't realize they were doing that. Hmm. And I guess since they're electric, well, I guess they could be used indoors, but really the intent is to do it to use them
Outdoors, right? No,
outdoors.
it's absolutely outdoors. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so it sounds like unfortunately things with conventions, things with the restaurant and hotel industries kind of on hold.
Airport.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I just went traveling. I just came back from a trip about a week ago, and boy, the restaurants in the retail, just retail in airports was just completely shut down. We had to
Crushed.
go through Dallas Fort Worth, and everything was shut down besides one Wendy's, and I didn't really want fast food, but that was my only option. So they're doing all right.
The one, yeah, exactly, exactly.
That one, yeah, exactly. All right, cool. So have like so we have some questions that we talked about going through. I don't know if this one's real pertinent or not right now, but how have you grown in the past few years? I'm guessing in the last 6 months or so, kind of everything's kind of
Mhm.
on hold. How about up until then? How are things going
So
with the
I've
city?
been. It's a great question, Eric, but I've only been with Visit Norfolk for since January of 2019. But I can tell you that because we are an external agency, a contracted agency to the city of Norfolk, our money comes from a grant, and that money up until this year, really, and we're on a fiscal year, July to June. Um, Up until this year, hadn't changed. I mean, really, for 10 years, it was the same amount of money,
Hmm.
regardless of the number of people or new ad campaigns that we wanted to put together to promote the city. So we've not grown and we've not reduced. We've had some minor organizational changes over the years, but for the most part, we've kind of stayed the same. Success has been, yeah, again, the production has been about the same. I will tell you that this year, the sales team, and maybe just because of COVID and the pandemic, that we've had to reinvent ourselves and reinvent how we're going about and which customers are going to come back sooner for meetings. And then I'd love to get into the story about our partnership with Virginia Beach at one point.
Yeah, let's hear.
Um, but
I
let me,
didn't realize that you partnered with Virginia Beach.
yeah, this, so
You
anyways,
must change the
so
name of your company, right?
right, no.
No,
Um,
no, no.
so let me just the sales team has gone out, but they are 25% ahead of what their goals are year to date. And I would suspect by the end of this month, maybe into next month, they will have already achieved their goals that we established before COVID hit. So,
Good for
sales team
you.
have been
That's
forced to
impressive.
reinvent themselves a bit. And so from a growth standpoint, we've been able to do that. Now, the growth is in meetings coming in the second half of 2021 and 22. So it doesn't help us in the short term, but is encouraging for the long term. Um, one of your questions was market strategy that we've talked about, and we knew as COVID hit that sooner or later there's going to be a recovery. Sooner, so people are going to want to travel. They're going to want to breathe the fresh air. They want to exhale. Um, and we also knew that they would travel, and at least from a leisure standpoint, they would travel by car. Um, so I took a pencil and a kind of a string and said, "What's 350 miles, one gas tank away from Norfolk?" And find out that there's 72 million people living one gas tank away from us. What traveler sentiment said at the time, and it still exists today, is that they're looking for water to travel to. And we have plenty of water. We have the ocean between Virginia Beach and Norfolk. We have the bay, the ocean, and rivers. So we have these wonderful assets. We also have these outdoor activities, whether it's the zoo, whether it's the botanical gardens, whether it's the Elizabeth River Trail where people can bike or run. We have these outdoor opportunities. And then we have all these wonderful attractions and restaurants that are safe. And as long as we can promote a safe visitation, we believe that we could attract visitors. Well, I took that plan. We came up with the plan with our agency. I'm going off on tangents in my mind because one of the successes that we had is the different mediums that we used. And when we were going over the messaging and the communications to the agency, and I'm sorry, I'm sidetracking, it was important that I felt that we had a song to track along with that messaging. Well, the theme of the campaign was Together at Last. Not necessarily Virginia Beach and Norfolk being together at last, as much as it was for your family to be together again, for your couples to be together, friends to get together. So we had all of this wonderful footage from being on the beach, being on kayaks, being at breweries, all of these outstanding opportunities, these amenities that we have. So Together at Last. Well, being a kind of a fan of old time jazz, the song that came to mind immediately was Etta James, At Last. So we tracked that with all the social media that we did, and it was a huge success, huge, to the point where the occupancy of our market, there's 25 markets by Smith Travel Research, which is the go-to travel agency, or not travel agency, travel statistical collector, if you will, in our industry. Smith Travel Research has 25 different markets. We are one. Norfolk, Virginia Beach is one of those markets. This is now week 18 of being the top market in the country of those 25 with occupancy. We've had the highest occupancy of those 25 markets for 18 weeks. I mean, this is just, we thought it might end Labor Day weekend, but it has gone all the way through September. The hotels that I talked to today, they indicate that their September was stronger than their August, and their August was better than their July. And October to date, through 19 days, has been significantly better than September. So I'd like to say that it's the ad campaign that we've done, that it's been socially targeted well, but it's also all those things I just said. We're one gas tank away. People don't want to go to New York. They don't want to go to Philadelphia. The beaches that are in the Delmarva area going up north, Myrtle Beach has had their problems. This has been a good location to do that. So we've had some great success. The other beauty with the strategy was that it was all social medium, in that we didn't do print, we didn't do TV, we didn't do radio, but the great advantage of social is that if it's not working in one market, you can end it immediately and reallocate it to markets that are working. For instance, we found that Philadelphia market was, for whatever reason, organically growing very rapidly. So we took the money out of West Virginia that we thought would be successful, reallocated it to Philadelphia, and Philadelphia is now the #2 market of interest through keyword searches. So we're very, very pleased, to the point where we put billboards up in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and DC as well, to attract people.
Because it sounds like you use social media to basically experiment, right? And figure out where your message was resonating. And then wherever it was, you amplified it by putting, that longer term commitment in place, like billboards or print or TV, if you want to go down that path as well. But first and foremost, use social media to figure out what that message is, who it resonates with, and where it's resonating the most. So that's very smart.
We believe that that's far better than any print or TV or radio, because you've got to have you have to have those pieces prepared well in advance. You can't adapt, you can't change. Social media is so far beyond being able to target, to geofence, to really wrap yourself around certain people that are going to be attractive to your destination. I'm telling you, it's our agency Sway, a shout out to Sway. They've done a marvelous job. Our PR agency has followed up with that, with making sure that we get the right articles about, the meals, the chefs. 67% of our restaurants are chef owned and operated. There's a lot of great things that are happening in our city that we've been able to get the travel writers to, look at something new as well. So it's
That's
been a pretty good
excellent.
plan.
Well,
I wouldn't.
that's impressive that you had that level of success. Yeah.
Yeah. But, I like to. It's always good to have luck on your side, but to be smart, and use what you know, and know that those trends are there. We anticipated the timing, waiting for the governor to say when we should start advertising. So we started advertising in June, and it's been great. The one thing that I'm not sure that we did the best at was finding travel influencers, because people are just so hesitant to travel. It's still about 50%, and it's going in the wrong direction, by the way. Those that are interested in traveling are dropping, and those that are interested in staying home are increasing. So,
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
25% less travel this holiday season than last year is what they're
No,
already
I
saying.
believe that definitely. Now you mentioned Virginia Beach. Is that what you were just talking about? Was that an effort for Virginia Beach and for Norfolk together?
Yes. So I went to them probably in mid-April and said, "Here's the plan. You're more than welcome to join us. You can invest the same amount that we're investing in, and if you do that, then here's the frequency um, and the breadth of how far we can go within that 350 miles. Love to have you, but we're set in the message. We're not going to change the message. Do you want to play?" A week later, they came back and said, "We like what you're doing. Yes, we want to play." To the point where a number of their key stakeholders, and by the way, I came down to Norfolk to open the Maine. I then opened the Cavalier at Virginia Beach. In between, or before I opened the Maine, I was doing the Hilton with our company at Virginia Beach. So I've got a lot of great friends and colleagues down there. They've all come back to say this is the best campaign that they've seen in years. So,
That's fantastic.
yeah, we lucked out. We were smart. You
You're
surround
smart.
yourself.
Give yourself
Eric, as
credit.
you surround yourself with great people, and you get the hell out of the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, also the crew over at Sway, they've done this a few times. So definitely a good agency to be paired up with.
They're of the bomb, and so is Lou Hammond Group out of New York. They've done a great job with getting us some great exposure in that Northeast corridor.
Fantastic. Hey, so just curious, and only people from the Norfolk, Virginia Beach area are going to be interested in this question and answer probably. But with the messaging, what was the name of the region that you put out there? Because this is going to people that you said are 350 miles away from us. What did you call this area? I know that's a hot topic around here. Always has been, probably always will be.
Well, it went as far as Columbus, Ohio. It went into upstate New York. It went in, a lot of times too, people going to the beach typically travel south to the beach. People
Makes sense.
from here go they travel south. But Raleigh, Durham became one of our hot markets as well. So I don't know if there was a name that we called it. Is there? Mid-Atlantic? I don't know. It's
Well, but I mean, like in the actual messaging, you were saying like, come to, was it Virginia
oh
Beach?
no. It was absolutely it was Norfolk, Virginia Beach.
You know what? Bingo. Yeah. So everybody has an opinion around here about
Right.
what we should or shouldn't call the area, but
Yeah.
if it's on a map, it makes it real easy for people to understand where they're going versus an invented name. Yeah. I have a question here from Olga. Can you direct some of those campaign efforts to the Spanish-speaking population? So I think the whole bringing people into the region.
That's a great comment. We didn't, because our money was somewhat limited. So I'm not sure how much that money would have taken away from the English speaking and gone into the Spanish speaking. We did target African Americans, so we did make it. We did divide out culturally where we thought it would work, and we made sure that the visuals on all of our social media had a variety of people and a variety of skin tone and a variety of ages and gender. So we really made sure that while we didn't do it in Spanish, but that's a great thought. and I'm embarrassed that we didn't find money to do that.
Hey, next time. Let's
Yeah.
get some more money. Well, that is fantastic. I think we've covered pretty much everything. Yeah, we talked about the marketing strategy and growth, and certainly the strategy or the times that the restaurant and hospitality industry is going through. I did have a question here from Kevin Daisy. He asked it probably around the time that we were talking about the heaters. So we talked about how the city of Norfolk in particular has purchased, I think it was $50,000
Right.
worth of electric heaters that they've given to restaurants so that they could extend their hours
Right.
or their outdoor time of a year. So Kevin's asking, how do you think cold weather will impact the restaurants?
And that's a great question. And we've been talking about this for about a month now, because those heaters, if they do a 6 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot radius, you're lucky. But what happens after that? So the real question, Kevin, I think, or the answer comes down to, how can I give you confidence that your meal is going to be hot? How do we heat the plates before we put the meal on the plate? And then make sure that the bell that goes on the plate, the cover that goes on the plate, is equally warm. So when it comes out to you, it's in a warm container. We think that we can last through mid-November, but then it becomes what's those menus? What activities can we put on the street corner? And fortunately, we have the holidays coming up. So from that mid-November, end of November through the Christmas holiday season, do we do Yule logs? Do we do hot chocolate? How do we activate street corners in the city to get people to come downtown? But I think we have the hot meals covered, the warmth covered, probably until Thanksgiving, and then it's
Well, even Thanksgiving and holiday time frame, in particular the holidays, I think people will still want to come out. Like, I
oh yeah.
don't mind being out in the cold if I know that I'm going to be out in the cold, right? So bundle up and whatnot. So I would imagine people will still make it out, especially if there are those heaters out and about, so you get a little bit of relief from the cold. You may not want to be out for 4 or 5 hours, but for an hour meal or drinks with friends or something like that. Absolutely. And the climate around here is so temperate that we'll
It
be
is.
fine. Maybe 2 or 3 months it'll be really cold around here, and that's it.
So how do they do it in, Colorado Springs? How do they do it in Edmonton? How do they do it in Minneapolis? I mean, people dress for it. They still want to go out. They still survive through it. So we're trying to learn best practices from cities that activate their streets in the winter.
We have a follow-up from Olga. Thank you for sharing my question. I suspect 2020 census population results will help with future budget distribution considerations. Interesting, yeah.
Boy, wouldn't that be nice? A lot of our it doesn't come directly from the hotel taxes, the occupancy taxes, but or the meal taxes, but our industry generates to Norfolk, I want to say $50-60 million a year, roughly. The economic impact in 2019 for the visitor economy was just short of $1 billion. 8,000 people are employed in the hospitality industry. So it is a formidable industry, but our money doesn't necessarily get tied into the census. I wish it. I'm not even sure. I would hope that when I go to city council and ask for a budget, it is on, here's the programs that we want to do this year. Here's the additional marketing and the outreach that we think are going to be successful. Can we increase it, a certain percentage? Because we certainly have increased the tax revenues coming in year over year. Hope that answers your question, Olga.
Well, it's been fantastic, Kurt. Is there anything that I failed to ask you that you think the audience should know about? I'm thrilled, Eric, to be part of this. Thank you so much for inviting me.
I think our industry is a very special industry. The economy has certainly hurt our industry horribly, which then has had effects on the traveler and people wanting to go find a good dinner. And so let's all wear our masks, be social distancing, wash your hands. We'll get through this eventually. Get your flu shot, and hopefully, come springtime, we'll be through this and better prepared for the next viral attack that we are likely to get.
Yep, completely agree. And I'll throw one more thing in there. For anyone who goes out and dines, take care of your wait staff, especially now. Like things like a 10% or 15% tip. It's probably honestly not quite enough. Wait staff, they work for tips, and there's a reduced number of people coming through. And if you can give a little bit more, which I'm guessing you can, now's the time. Help them out. So.
Indeed.
All right, Kurt. Hey, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Erik, it's been a blast. Thank you so much. Let's do it again. We can talk baseball anytime you want. Those base running blunders from the Braves last night were just killer.
That's for a different podcast.
Talking about the Washington football team that I don't know.
All right, buddy. Hey, man, appreciate it.